All right, so I've started. So the lecture is going to be recorded, by the way, but you're not in, so we don't need to sign any GDPR papers or anything. Perfect. Right? All right, so thank you very much for coming here. I am extremely honored and happy that the first Center for Digital Play Games talk of this season is by a phenomenal artist and game designer and community organizer and everything else from Argentina, Grazzini. It's really great to be able to kick off these talks with you. It's going to be fantastic. I don't know what else to say except the floor is yours and just start.
Perfect.
Everything's ready. Yes.
I can just click here and no. What should I click to pass the?
Yeah or not. Right,
no.
Okay, yeah, so this is the part where, because we are recording it, but I'm not Hayo, if you haven't noticed, so like, this is going to look like shit and sound horrible. But it's going to be freely distributed somewhere. I think it should work now. Yes, all right, yes.
This is how we start. The talk is Crisis in Games, and it's like, if you're here, I guess you know you're gonna, let's roll with it. This is me. I have a scooter. I'm a game designer, I'm 2D artist, I'm an animator, I'm a teacher, I'm the hype elemental, if anyone has played Dungeons and Dragons. I have a podcast, I have worked in many things, I studied a lot of languages, I had a band, I did comics, and then I did music, and then I did like everything. And at some point in 2014, I started making games. And it's been like almost a decade. And I also collect a lot of toys, and I have like way too many, like 700 Pokemon toys. And now I have a Digimon on my clock, so yeah, I have a problem. And we are here, as you know, and I come from there, which is super far. I spent 4 days in a row in airports to get here. And I come from a city that is called Rosario, which is, I guess you all know Buenos Aires, which is the capital city. I live 4 hours away on bus or 3 hours on a car. And my city is renowned because Lionel Messi and El Che Guevara were born there. So that's like our city. It's a very cultural place. And further, this is the talk, basically. How did we get there? This is what the talk is about. Like, the socio-political and economical reality of people is always indivisible from the construction of their culture. So everything that happens in the country affects how people make art. And that's what we're going to see. Argentinian history is quite messy. We only have 200 and something years of history as a country, and we had so many crises and stuff. Again, your everyday life. A very common phrase in Argentina, it's like, I don't care, whatever happens in the government, I have to go to work every day anyway. No, it really affects your everyday life, what's happening. If you have played Night in the Woods, you will know, because the whole game is about how I think it's a mine, I don't know, the big market of the town gets shut down, and that affects everyone's lives. So if you have played it, you understand. This is my childhood. We had a whole bunch of economical crisis. This guy this guy was the economic the guy who ran the economy, but the president at that time decided to in the 90s decided to just sell everything and privatize all services and just shut down the airline and the trains and everything to use that money to keep the Argentinian peso 1-1 with the USA dollar. And of course that exploded at some point in 2000. The president on a night of December 2001, I was 10 years old, and the president, it was like people were losing their jobs, banks were going bankrupt, so people could not take their money out of their bank accounts. People were getting paid with coupons. It was like crazy, and the president appeared on TV at 9 o'clock saying, "Oh, there's a crisis, so we're gonna put a state of siege." And people just went into the streets, and we had like 3 days like that, everyone on the streets protesting. 30 people were killed. The president had to run away on an helicopter, and we had 5 presidents on a single week. And that's the end of my childhood, basically. The thing is, we have now a very big game industry, but all the game industry is founded on piracy. And this is really important for us. I wouldn't be here if it weren't because of piracy, because games were extremely expensive, but extremely expensive. So we grew up with, like, I grew up not knowing that games should come in a box with a manual. I had no idea. I found out as an adult. And someone is saying yes. So this was like the Sega Genesis, but it was like manufactured in Argentina, and it was the thing that people could play. Most people had a thing we called family game, like that in English, and it was actually a NES, but I don't know, illegal. And not only it's an industry built on piracy, it's also an industry that grew up without having played many of the classics. Because both Zelda and Final Fantasy and a few others had like a thingy that could save the game inside the cartridge that was extremely hard to pirate. So those games were never played. Like, maybe if you were like super rich, you had a Game Boy, but only very, very rich people had it. Like, for me, it was like an impossible dream to have a Nintendo. It was impossible. The other thing is, most games were not in Spanish. Like in Europe, it's more common to have a lot of translations, and like the European versions have a lot of languages. But we got what we got. We got a lot of games directly from Japan, or maybe they came from the USA, so they were not in Spanish. And many of us learned, like I'm here now speaking in English because I wanted to play Echo the Dolphin, and I could not play it if it wasn't with the dictionary. I put this image because it was like my revelation. I was like 7 or 8 years old, and I was playing this game, and I could not get past this screen until at some point I was like, wait, there's words at the start. What are they? And like I noted them, and I went to my mom and I asked for a dictionary, and I was like, I need to learn this language to play games. Okay, let's do it. And I just started reading the dictionary, and that was it. Again, things were expensive, and we were in a crisis. And my parents did 2 great things in my childhood. That was spend a lot of money in the Sega Genesis and the Sega Dreamcast. They were not bought on the country because it was so expensive. So we went to Paraguay, and we bought them in Paraguay without taxes. Paraguay is like Andorra here. They don't have taxes, so it's actually it's more cheap than in the country where they manufacture things. And it was still a lot of money. I remember my dad spent like 100 pesos, which were dollars at that time, to buy my Dreamcast, and that was, I don't know, 2 months of food, maybe. It was a lot of money. They made like a huge inversion so I could have games. But the Pokemon cards were like 30 pesos, and that was, I don't know, way too much money. So I made my own. I learned how to play because there was one rich guy on the school who had them. And he taught me, and I started like just buying the magazines that had the pictures of the cards, and I started like making my own. And then I was, okay, if I know the rules, I can make my own cards, and I can make more Pokemon and just invent them because I know the rules. This is game design. And I started making other games. Why not? This is like Yu-Gi-Oh! This is a Digimon card. Those are like an invented Sonic trading card game or something. And I did a lot. This came with a with a big board game, like the board, that was Johto, because I was dying to play the Game Boy Advance, the Game Boy Color games. It was impossible for me. So I was watching like walkthroughs in the TV, and I was like, okay, let's do it as a board game. So you could move around the board, and you had like towns, and you had like encounters, and every time you had an encounter, you would take one of these at random, and you had to like compare with your Pokemon, and it was like kind of the Game Boy game, but as a board game. And I started doing that with a lot of other games. So yeah, that's basically how I learned game design. I was 11 or 12. And this is a moment in every Argentinian life. I'm 32, so everyone of my generation and before had a moment that they remember of this revelation. Like, games were something that only happened in Japan, maybe the USA, and that was it. You had to be born there. And you had to, like, I don't know, learn astrophysics to make games. And at some point it's like, wait, are games being made here? Can I do it? And it's like a huge revelation. Some games, I'm going to show you a lot of games that of my country so you can get to know what's happening now. Phantom Gear, it's a game that is being made for the Sega Genesis. Why? Because that was our dream. Like, we grew up thinking that was not possible. So the dream is not just making games, it's making a game for the console I grew up with. So they are making this game that actually runs on a cartridge. It's about to be launched soon, like in 2 months or something. And it's amazing. What else? This is a phrase of my Spanish podcast, translated by some people that I'm going to show you now. For some things to happen, we gotta make them ourselves, or else they just won't. You can build your own reality. Like, if you say, I want to go to a place where certain things happen, then make them yourself. Sometimes economical comfort makes you accept reality as it is, but we don't. Or rather, we accept it, but we act upon it. Like, this could be better if it was a little bit different. And that's like how we build stuff. All the time, it's like, oh, this... We are, in German you say, of the arse of the belt, or something like that, like in the ass of the world. We have that phrase in Spanish, en el culo del mundo, and we feel like that. It's like, we're far away and things don't happen here. Things happen somewhere else. So if we want them to happen, like, companies won't come. Nintendo doesn't care about us. Like, things won't happen if we don't make them ourselves. So let's just make them happen. So these people, Videogamo, are into the handmade arcade community. We call them Familia Arcade, the arcade family. And they make their machines and they tour around and they do events in the streets and in pubs and stuff, and it's really nice. Their two most important things are well, the botone is like a party machine. So there are like 4 in the world, I think. And they move it around and they take it to places. And it's super nice. It's all custom made, everything. Nave is just one machine and they move it around. It's like this huge cabinet, like arcade. And they make tournaments, and it's like I don't want to say religion, but it's like a feeling. Like, Nave is more than the game. Nave is not what happens inside of the screen. Nave is what happens around the machine. Because we gather together for each each party they make, and there's always people playing live music and people making homemade food for everyone, and there's like a lot of like culture going around, and it's this big cultural event. So it's like super important. People have like tattoos of Nave because it's like a feeling. They also made, these people also made like a Fußball, like this little football that you play with the thing, but with a screen. Because the University of New York like paid them to make a machine for their event, and they made this super cool. Some other people from the community, there's a lot, but I chose these ones because I like. That's a pinball, that's an actual pinball. They actually made it's physical. Thunderbolt, it's like a 4-player game, it's very cool. Pump, it's actually coded on Construct 2, which is amazing. And it's like 2 screens, and you play with the pinball buttons. It's really nice. And we have a lot of these events where people gather and play these games, and music, and it's very nice. They made this documentary where they put all of those machines inside that bus. That's my city, by the way. They put it on that bus. It's a school bus, and they toured around the country, and they went to many cities, and every city they would stop at some park. They would open the doors of the bus, and kids could go in and play all the games, and there were like workshops and stuff going around, and they filmed a documentary about it. It's super cool. Another thing that happens, because I want this to happen, why not I do it myself? I have a few, like in real life, that you can come afterwards and look around. Replay, it's a magazine that just talks about weird retro games. They don't just only do it on paper, they also have like a newspaper, which is like super cute. And I don't know, it's like the dream. Oh, I want to make these magazines like the ones I used to read when I was a kid, so let's just do it. And this is the great example, that it's the Argentinian train jam. There are 2 train jams in the world. One is the one that we all know, that it's in the USA, that goes from the East Coast to the West Coast and gets to the GDC. And it's super expensive, and you gotta be there, and if you are Latin American, you cannot enter, and if you are, I don't know, Asian or whatever, they don't like, you have problems and stuff. And this guy was like, oh wow, they do this cool thing, and we have game developers, we have trains, why don't we do it? And he just went to the Trenes Argentinos, the Argentinian train, which is now, it became ours again, after being privatized. And he just went and went like, hey, we want to make this weird event, and we code, and they were like, okay, have a vegan. And they gave him a vegan, and then we made it. The first one was in 2017, and we ran it a couple of years until the pandemic. And now the next one is gonna be, I am not allowed to say it, at some point of the end of this year, and this is a little bit of what happened. I also work in media, so you can see me there making interviews in the train. What else? What topics do games cover? Some are local, some are like inspired in other stuff, some are for export. What happens there? On one hand, we have Cartoon Network. Cartoon Network made from 2015 on, for a few years, ran some game jams, like the Cartoon Network game jam on Buenos Aires. And it was great. Like, a lot of people went to the jam, and some of the teams that were really, really good were hired by Cartoon Network. So many of the games that you can see on cartoonnetwork.com are Argentinians. That you cannot tell, of course, because they have to be perfect. That was a very big thing for our industry, because many people started working abroad like that, and also started like learning like the methods, the animation style, and it was really good. So these are some of the games from 2 different studios. And what happens after that? People took what they learned by doing stuff for Cartoon Network and used that knowledge to make their own things. So Juanito Arcade, for example, it has this cartoony style of animation and the colors and stuff that comes from there. Purple Tree, it's making a lot of games. There's even more than this that I'm showing here. And everything is like hand animation, like handmade animation. It's really, really nice. This is a football game, but it looks like cartoony. That's like a sort of Bomberman meets Legend of Zelda, but it's also like super cartoony. And the other one is like this game that Punch-Out, I think is the name, from Nintendo. But yeah, and also foreign inspiration. Of course, there's a lot like everywhere. This is a very nice game that it's being produced right now. It's like an adventure game, and it's all hand-drawn, and it's super nice, and it's about mostly European stories, like the ones that we read when we were kids, the Grimm brothers, etc. And it's super, super good looking. I'm very anxious to play it. But what happens? This is interesting. In Europe, generally, nationalism is a thing it's seen like a bad thing, like it's from the right wing. But for us, nationalism is very, very much from the left. Why? Because we were a colony, and many people still want to be. Like it's very, very common that people go like, no, this shit doesn't happen in Europe. No, everything in Europe is better, and like that is like they are sad of that we got our independence. So defending your local culture with everything that means, that is our language, our music, the Aboriginal people, and on all of the mixture that is Latin America, because we're different but we all feel like brothers. And defending that, it's like cultural resistance for us. It's like not. We don't only have to consume things that come from afar and in English.
Antes la competencia era insuficiente.
This is from
Teníamos
Dictatorship.
productos buenos, pero muchas veces el consumidor debía conformarse con lo que había sin poder comparar. Ahora tiene para elegir, además de los productos nacionales, los importados. Esta competencia fortalece a la industria nacional. Pero cuidado, los productos importados pueden ser buenos, regulares o malos. Ahora hay mucho más para elegir. Aproveche esta situación y compare.
This is interesting. This was television propaganda from Last Dictatorship. Last Dictatorship was from 76 up until 82 or 3 after the Malvinas War, and against England. And I cannot get very much deep into that because I'm gonna like depress everyone, because it was not just a disaster economically. There were also like 30,000 people killed and many more tortured, and people got exiled, and it's like very bad, and we're still like suffering those consequences. And this is like the foundational stone. This is a thing that mark culture, because it's not that important things are bad. Like I have the Digimon toy now. I love things, but the thing is that if it's national, it's bad, and that's like an idea that got very deep into us. So if you invite someone to the cinema and you say, "Hey, let's go see this Argentinian movie," they will say, "No, why would I do that? It's gonna be bad because it's from here." It's like it's so common. Like everyone hates their culture, hates the everyone knows, of course, like the right wing. The right wing hates the culture, hates the national products, and it's something we have to fight. This is a very, very, very known phrase, and you will hear it on TV even. Like the only way out is the airport. The only way you can succeed is if you go away to an actual serious country, right? Now like this chaos. And it's hard. Like this is my 3rd time in Europe. I came 2 times more doing a music tour, and every time I go back, people ask me like, "Why did you came back? Why didn't you stay?" And I love my country. I want to stay here. I'm comfortable. And people, it's like, why? Why would you choose this? Yeah. So there's this thing about talking about what's ours and like being proud of it. And so, for example, you have Shadow Brothers is another game that comes from the Cartoon Network influence. The animations are insane. A few of the best animators I know in the country are in this game, and it's a super cool mechanic. Like the players can be either like they are silhouettes, and they can be either black or white. And you can change with a button, and if you are black and you get inside the black, you are invisible, 100% for you and from everyone else. So you have to all the time be like playing with your color, and if you want to attack someone from behind, you can be invisible, but you won't see yourself either. So it's very nice. And we have this character, which is it could be Argentinian, it could also be from Peru, because on the north of Argentina get like the frontier with the edge with Peru, it's like kind of the same culture. It's not the same, but we share a lot of things. So we had a poncho, and it has a little hat and the hair, and it's like, and she's called Juanita. So it's like the character, you know. This is one of the games I worked in. It's called Los Rostros del Bosque, which is the faces of the forest. And it takes place in the Patagonia, which is the south of our country, which has like mountains and it's very cold all the time. And it's like a military, there's a military coup, fictional. Now, like suddenly military want to do stuff on the town. So you are this girl that is called Ana, and it's the granddaughter of the grandma who is Mapuche. Mapuche is one of the Aboriginal people we have. And so there's someone wanting to get in, I think. So we made this game where, I don't know, we showed a little bit of like the plants and stuff, but the important thing is I went to a museum once that had a lot of the like everyday objects of Aboriginal people before Christopher Columbus came, and like cool, but there was also a big sign like covering the whole wall that said Aboriginals do not belong in a museum, they are alive. And it's like, it shocked me, because it's true. We tend to feel like, oh, it's the past that we lost. And sure, there were a lot of people killed, and many people, like entire civilizations got extincted then. But many survive, and they live with us, and they are like Argentinians, like any, and they keep their culture and their language and their religion. And we tend to think about like something from the past, something that belongs behind the glass, and it's not like that. So we wanted to make a game where you have a whole bunch of characters, and some are like more, I don't know, with traditional Spanish names, and some are more have Aboriginal names. Some have are dressed like this. Some are dressed with more traditional clothing, and they are all together in the town. It's not just that. Well, I also had to investigate a lot, like to know the meaning of the names, the representation of things, like the little thing, the rectangle there is like your life bar, and it's a specific drawing that it's about like the continuity of life and time, etc. And I had to like take care of all of those things. We had some interviews with people from the Mapuche community, to make sure that we were actually representing everything carefully and respectfully and accurately. And we also got the game translated, so it's probably the first game translated into Mapuche language, which took a lot of job from the translators. So yeah, we're really proud of this. It's also in many other languages, because we had a lot of fun people just translating for us. This is another game. which is based on Aboriginal stories from the Quam people, which is another I don't know how to say pueblo. People, yeah, I don't know. This is being made right now. It's really nice. Another game also from the Quam community, La Idasai y El Árbol Negro and the Black Tree. It's made mostly by one girl. It has like some collaborations, but it's mostly by her, which is also like some stories. Atuel, it's from my cooperative that it's called Matajuegos. I did not work on it. So my colleagues from the cooperative work on it. And it's a documentary about the Atuel River. And it's actually, I said a documentary? Yeah, it's a documentary game. So some people made the documentary, had a lot of interviews to different people, some Aboriginal people, some I don't know, like people from science, like talking about like the nature of the river, and you play as the river and everything that it's surrounded. So sometimes you are a fish, sometimes you are the evaporated water that goes and rains. Sometimes you are like a little fox that runs around and you hear all the stories, and it's also translated, it has subtitles in many languages, even more than our game, because this game got selected in a lot of festivals around the world. So, what is our identity in games? We have no idea. And it kind of bothers us because we have very strong identities in many other art forms, like Latin American music. It's so recognizable. Latin American literature, it's so recognizable. But what are Latin American games? Why don't we know? Should we know yet? So I wanted to show you some stuff from other art forms that kind of get into games. We have a lot of literature in Latin America and in my country. You will definitely know Borges, Jorge Luis Borges, fantasy writer. Like, it's not urban fantasy, but kind of, it's hard to explain what he does. I don't know if someone knows, this is Hopscotch in English, by Julio Cortázar. You might have seen it here because it's like this book where you can choose in which order you read the chapter, so it's kind of playful. It's really nice, and he also writes like magical realism, which is one of the biggest things in Latin America. Magical realism, it's like fantasy that takes place in your daily life. So you have, I don't know, there's a Mexican story, como agua para chocolate, like water for chocolate, that it's this girl that cooks, and at some point she's super sad because stuff is happening, and she's cooking and she's crying, and her tears fall into the thing she's doing, and then when everyone eats the plate, they start crying, and I don't know, it's that's like the feeling of magical realism. It's like something that maybe could happen, but no. And this is like this guy Pablo de Santis is alive. He makes super cool stories, and he's also translated into many languages, so you can Google all them as well. Some games that do that. Manzana Misteriosa, Mystery Apple. Mystery Apple, but it's also a play on words because it's also the block, like in the city, a block. So it would be like mystery block. It's a game also in development that it's about an urban legend from Buenos Aires that is Parque Chas. What happens? For you, this is like very common. It's like, yeah, it's a city. Our cities look like this. So this is my city. This is like a perfect grid, and it's not only a perfect grid, but it also has like this very sophisticated, not sophisticated, but like a very precise system where the river that goes all around is the zero of all of the numbers, both the ones that go like this and the one that goes like this. And the first two numbers are which number of block you're in, and the second two numbers are how many meters from the from the closest corner next to the river. So if you live in that street, Avenida Pellegrini, and the number is 1245, you live in the 12th like block from the river, so it's super simple. And so we have this in Buenos Aires, and we get insane. It's like people get lost. And there's this urban legend about this place that if you go inside, you will never come back. Or you will come back like, I don't know, 2 years later or something. It's like a vortex, I don't know. So they made this game where this girl has to go through Parque Chas, and of course a lot of magic things start happening. There's also a comic that is called Parque Chas about it, and yeah, it's urban legends are very much our thing, and you can see them in games as well. Des Espejos is it's also from my team. It's like a find the difference game, but the opposite. You have two completely different images, and you have to find the places where they are the same. And the idea is that, like sometimes a mirror can break, but what happens if it malfunctions? If it starts like not reflecting like how you look, like you're outside, but you're inside, and suddenly you see yourself in the mirror, and you see like your fears, your fantasies, your inner world. So we are making this game, and it's also like this kind of magical realism thing. Maybe you know Daniel Benmergui. It's like one of the people most renowned from our country. Recently, he got this game published by Annapurna, that it's a storyteller, maybe. And he's been making games from since about 2012. So he got into the indie wave. He got in the moment. He left everything and he started making games. And he made these two that were very, very renowned back then. This is Today I Die, and this is I Wish I Were the Moon. I Wish I Were the Moon is based on an Italo Calvino story that is about someone who falls in love with the moon and all the story, and like a triangle, a lover's triangle there. And Today I Die, it's wonderful. It's super short. You have that poem on the top, and you play with that little girl with the arrows, and you can pick up words from like the environment. And what you pick are adjectives. So you pick new adjectives and put them on your description of how you're feeling and your description of the world, and the world changes. In the moment that you put a different adjective, like the whole level changes, because how you perceive your reality and how you talk about your reality changes how you feel it and how you perceive it. So that's like the idea of the game, and you have to like get out of depression basically by changing how you speak about your world. It's super nice. It takes like 2 minutes to play. Super good game. This movie is Nueve Reinas. It's 9 Queens. It had a USA remake, which is super bad. The original one is really good if you want to see it. The other two are comics. And we have this idea, super common, that it's like the anti-hero and the dramatic comedies. Like our protagonists tend to be some people are very common, and people like sometimes they are likable, sometimes they are not, but they are common. They are not really special. They have their flaws, like, and it's like how normal people react to the things that can be magical or not, but to the things that are around it. So we have a lot of stories like this. This one is like this I don't know, gangster, which is very hateable. It's you hate it. It's a very anti-hero. the little doors of Mr. Lopez. It's a common, very, very boring guy that works in an office, but every now and then he wants to escape reality, and he opens a door from the bathroom, and he's suddenly in a super surreal world. Many of the stories are textless, so you can probably just get them. And Nueve Reinas, it's like a robbery film, but also like the characters are kind of despicable. It's super good, and that's a very common thing in our culture. Dramatic comedies is our thing. It's like you laugh a lot about someone who is having a terrible life. It's like, because we have to. Because if we don't make jokes about all the terrible things that happen, how do you survive? So we laugh a lot about ourselves, and we laugh a lot about like these terrible situations. This is a storyteller. What I had with this is that this is a very important thing of our culture, but it's so hard to find a game like that. And I started I couldn't find any, so I started talking to people that know a lot about Argentinian games, and they were like, I needed an example of this. It's so hard to find, and I'm thinking that it is because you don't want to suffer yourself. You want to see someone else suffer. You want to make the catharsis with a character in a film, not play yourself a character that has a really bad day. So, but I thought a storyteller is a good example, because a storyteller, well, it has the foreign inspiration because it's all classic books. You can see Dracula and there's Poe, there's classical stories. And you kill the characters, you make them heartbreaks, you make a terrible life of the characters, because you're not the characters, you're the storyteller. You're just telling the story. So you have this empty comic, and you put the setting, and there you put the character, and depending on the setting, the character will react differently, and each character has a little bit of motivation, but that motivation can be changed if you change their story. So you have to make the stories so you fulfill the title on top. So yeah, that's you don't want to be the guy that has a bad day. You want to make other people do it. But we have this example. LCD Game Studio is making these pulp little games that last 2 hours, maybe as much. They're like a comic film, kind of visual novel. They all look like this. It's amazing, and all of the characters are extremely despicable. They are common people suddenly facing extraordinary things. So it has this idea, and they are terrible, and you hate them all. But it's amazing because you also empathize with them, because they are having they're fighting monsters suddenly. And these are really, really good. Now they are making a game that doesn't look like this at all. Suddenly they change everything, and they are making a game about a group of kids in a beach town that is called Mar del Plata. It's very common. It's where a lot of people go vacation. And it's a group of kids just playing a trading card game, and you can play the trading card game, and suddenly there are weird things happening, and the little kids get involved. I am super hyped about it. Everything I saw was amazing, and it's that game has my name all over it. Noir Storm, I don't know if it got released already. It was in development until not long ago. It's also a noir story about a common guy suddenly facing stuff. There's a very Argentinian pub with there's Borges there, there's Gardel there, which you also probably know from tango. Is it sounding? Can I? There you go. Music, it's extremely important for us. This is a chacarera, what you're hearing. It's folk music. Most of Latin America, I would say, folk music has a very important rhythm, it's like the percussion,
soy el olvidado en la alcancía del tiempo, el que se quedó poniéndote el pecho.
here.
Cuando el tren se va, miro en las vías la luna, pensando tal vez mi pago encuentre fortuna. Ojalá mi alma mi bofe se hinchó cuando repartieron, de mí no se acuerdan, dicen que nunca me vieron, que no soy de aquí, que ya no tengo remedio. Soy el olvidado, el mismo que un día se puso de pie, tragando tierra y saliva, camino hacia el sol para curar las heridas.
That's it. Tango. This is Astor Piazzolla. If you don't know Astor Piazzolla, please go look for it. It's like a more modern tango. Many songs were used in films. I think it was used in 12 Monkeys. Yeah. What happens with tango? That's the thing, because the other folk music has like the spirit and the countryside and the rhythm, which is super important. Each type of music has a very specific rhythm touch. But tango is a lot more. It's like a rhythm game where you have to dance because, like I said, the rhythm is super important and the dancing is super important. Each kind of folk music, and that includes tango, has like a very specific dancing. Tango is really nice, like I don't like dancing, but if you ever go to a tango class, it's like a game. It's a conversation between two people, and one of them is like, okay, now I'm going to do this, and you go like, okay, it's fun, it's super nice, it's a game waiting to happen. But it's also a lot more. Because tango is the culture, it's the moment in time where it developed. It's the very city where the poor people, the more rich people, the fighting in the night, the mafia, the arguments that the lyrics are extremely sad. Absolutely sad. And going on with music, we have the lyrics. What happens with poetry? We had a lot of dictatorships. I only talked about the last one because it's the one that was the most terrible one, and it's also the last one. This year, now we are having elections, and we are celebrating 40 years of democracy. That means that my parents lived through the last dictatorship, and it changed a lot of things. But we had also a lot of other dictatorships before, and that means censorship, a lot of censorship, and a lot of people that had to either run away from the country because they would get killed because of the art they did, or they had to remain hidden, or they had to find a way to say the things that they wanted to say in a more subtle way. So what happens after a century, basically, of like coming and going from dictatorships? That shapes culture. So if you listen to any rock music from, like, I don't know, many countries, I don't want to say all, but many countries, it's like, okay, they want to say this, and they kind of say it. And you have, I don't know, punk music, like fighting against the system, and it says it, like you can read the lyrics. Argentinian music is so obscure, so hermetic, so impossible. Like, you have to, even us, have to listen to a song many times to get like, okay, he's talking about his father, okay. And we discuss about what actually means. This guy is Charlie Garcia, and he had like many bands through history. He's still live playing, and he's amazing. All of his music in every stage, it's great. And I translated a song so you can see. I'm gonna just leave it so you read it. You can see how impossible it is to know the fuck it's saying. Chacarera, but it's modern one. It's like a rock chacarera or somehow.
A veces cuando pienso que todo está perdido, voy hacia una de las formas de la muerte. Me pego un tiro con una palabra que alguna vez me fue tan transparente. Del agua que corre, me recuerdo en la llegada de unos trenes. Sales de los mares, curvas de los puertos, con mujeres descalzas en el verde. Voy hacia el fuego como la mariposa, y no hay rima que rime con vivir. No te pares, no te mates, solo es una forma más de demorarse.
Can I go? So it's like, you read it a lot of times and you go like, oh, okay, he's talking about death. And it's like this whole process and this idea of you get this, oh, okay, it's like this poor guy, but was he important? Does it matter if it was important in life? And why do you live? And what's the reason for you to wake up each day? And it talks about all of those things. But it's so weird. It's so hard to get. And that is, that's basically many years of censorship, just getting into the way we write and we read stuff. Sorry. So you got Ethereal. Ethereal is made by these two people, Nicolás Recabarren and Tomás Batista, and it's a very abstract game where you are a little dot of color and you have to pick up things. It's a puzzle. It's super cool. It doesn't have any word anywhere, but it tells a story. And it's super nice because it's like this exercise of always reading between the lines and always trying to catch the meaning, even if it's super hidden. So you play the game, and when you get to the ending, you go like, oh, wow, right, and you suddenly like understand a lot of things, and you make the story in your head. And that is like this same exercise of like, I want to tell something, but I will tell it very subtle. I talked about a lot of bad things that happen in my country. There was also a lot of good things. Let's talk about democratization of technology and knowledge. A very important thing is that our universities, like all of our educational system is free. From since you're a little kid until university, which I know here it's also free, but many countries it's not, and you have to pay a lot of money to get to university. We are very proud, and we think this is a foundational thing in our country to go to believe that everyone should have free education, and the access to knowledge should be free. There was this plan. We had a leftist. It's a Peronist government. It's a party that's called Peronism, but which is mostly leftist. We had 12 years of that. We call that like the people who agree, right? Because there's a lot of people who hate it. The people who agree call that la década ganada, which is like the decade we won. And this is one of the plans. it's like connecting equality. And people say like, okay, we need to digitalize stuff. We need people to get into digital things. We need all of the bureaucracy to be digital. But not everyone has computer. Not everyone knows how to use it. Not everyone has internet. Like the country is so big, and if you live like super in the mountains, maybe you don't have access. So there was this big plan of let's have a satellite. Let's teach all of those things, and let's give one little netbook to every kid in the country in secondary school, which is amazing. And for many years, every kid on secondary school would get a little netbook. It was great. For many people, it was their first personal computer. For many families, that was the first computer in the home. And it was, of course, very small, but people would I don't know, they could use it to do stuff. And many people, of course, like the right wing was like, they're using the money from my taxes to give the computer to these people that are going to sell it for drugs. And they are not using it to learn. They are just using it to play games as if that it wasn't important. Like what, only rich people have the right to play games? Like what, poor people cannot play games? What the fuck? And people would, like the kids would play, this happened after I had finished secondary school, so I had not one of those. Sadly, I was very jealous of my little sister because my little sister had her own personal computer and I had not. I was sharing with my dad. And the kids would play Counter-Strike on LAN on the breaks. So that was a very big thing, like a very very strong stuff in the culture of kids that are now 20. Many people, this produced a lot of rappers, a lot of kids from very poor neighborhoods started rapping and recording themselves with this stuff. And also many game developers. I know like right now there are a lot of kids that are like 20 that are entering games university, which did not exist when I was a kid. Now they are going to the public game university, and they are amazing. And it's like, how do you make these cool games if you're only 20? And it's like, of course, they have 10 years of experience. They received one of these when they were 11, and they went like, Google, how do I make a game? And they just started using Scratch or Construct or Game Maker, and they started making games. It's super important. This was in one of the arcade parties. A lot of kids like playing something on one of those computers. The universities, we have every year we are opening more public and free universities that teaches games. These are just some of them, like most important ones, but there are many, and there are a lot of courses, and we call them diplomatures because the courses tend to be like 5 years long, maybe. But we have like these diplomacies that last maybe 1 year or 2, but they are super good also. Super insane. Like I like to brag about how I know everyone. And after the pandemic, we had the Argentinian game exposition, EVA. And then I got there, and there were so many games that I didn't know, and there was like the floor was full with kids showing amazing games. And it was like, of course, all of these kids like just finished secondary school. They went into all of the online classes because of pandemic, and suddenly they got out of the hall and they are like doing this cool stuff, and it's super nice to see this change. Like when I started, none of these things existed, and it's really changing. And every year, the game exposition has more and more people showing cooler and cooler games. So yeah, everyone should have access to stuff, because you can see the difference between my experience, like pirated games and like having to cross to another country to get a machine, and I don't know, it was all so hard, and now these kids have the opportunity to have something different. So, games can change reality. A few examples. Project Demeter, it's done by a lot of people and ministries of justice and human rights and culture and etc. and it's run mainly by this non-binary game developer. It's called Mishka, and they go to jails. They go to prisons, and they teach the people in prison to make games. Because something that happens is that once they get out of prison, it's very hard to get a job. So the cycle kind of continues because they can't find a job, so they pour again, so they have to rob again. So there was this, like this guy went to many game studios and were like, if I get you a junior developer, even if they were in jail, would you hire them? I was like, if they can code, sure, whatever. And so they are teaching. They start with Twine, and the idea is to get further. And they are teaching people in prison to make games, and some of them are already coming out from prison, and they make these super cool Twine games, and it's really interesting. This guy, Juan Jose Aranda, is making muscle rehab with VR and with different machines, and it's like using games to help people with health problems. This is my cooperative. We make games with a social vision. So Union Drive, it's about a union that takes place in a supermarket and syndicates and stuff. Onda Verde, there were 2 of these. They were made by my programmer, David Marchand, and they are about the right to abortion and all that comes with that. One of them was really important because it took place during pandemic. So it's a virtual. A marcha is not a riot, because a riot kind of implies violence somehow. A marcha for us is just going to the streets and like we take flags and we sing and we express stuff, but it tends to be non-violent. So it was like both of them were virtual marchas, and people will send their little avatars, and David put them all in the game. So it's like this a lot of different avatars from different people, like just jumping, and you play that game. And Viaja Baraja, like traveling deck, let's say. And estresamente, which is a play on words impossible to translate, it's like stressfully, but mente is mind, so it's like stressful mind, stressfully. I work in both of them, and they were made by the people who run the Olympic Games. The International Olympic Committee pays a lot of different foundations across the world that promote a healthy life and healthcare, mental health, different stuff like around the sports, but not only. And these people from Latin America got that money and were like, we want to make 2 games for this. And yeah, they are both games to teach mental health to kids. So this one is more for little kids. This is like a little monster that lives inside your brain, and you're following the day, a very stressful day of a student, and like this person gets super stressed because they have an exam, and so the brain's on fire, and you have to go to the lungs and breathe, and that helps like calm the situation. Viaja Baraja, it's a visual novel. That it's about a lot of things. We had a lot of work with the foundation. So you have a deck of emotions that you have to play during a certain situation, and you have to play them all. Because the idea is that if you're feeling stuff, it's hard to control them. And so you have the obligation to play all of the cards that you have in your hand that are your feelings, but you have to play them in the correct moment. So being angry at a friend can be bad, but there's a situation where you want to play football on the street, and there's some other kids playing, and you want to play against them, and they go like, no, but she cannot play because she's a girl. And then you can be angry, and then and that's the important thing. Like, not an emotion is not good or bad on itself. It's depending on how you deal with it. So you have to deal with all of these situations. There's this the guy over there who just broke up with his first girlfriend. So he's dealing with like how to deal with toxic masculinity, and I don't want to be jealous, and how do I deal with this stuff? The person in the middle is non-binary, and it's like trying to like know how they feel and how they want to be treated, and if they want to express it so much or not, etc. The other girl is like super sportive, and she presses herself so much, and she has to like learn how to like, yeah, it's good to make sport, but don't kill yourself. Like you have to have a healthy life, etc. Acción Dev, it's a group of people that make they make talks, they make jams about also social stuff. They make this super cool jam because in front of my city there's an island, and people burn that island so they can build on that ground. Because if you destroy the natural reservoir, now there's suddenly no animals or plants here, so I can make a huge building. And I know in Spain they had something like this also going on, and they stopped it by putting a law that you cannot build on burned ground, and that suddenly all the fires stopped. We're having that problem, and they made this jam about this, and there were a lot of games. It went out in the news, it was super good. There's a workshop developing video games with identity and self-identity. We have a network of communities, which is also super important. Like every province, more or less, has their own community, so you can, if you want to make games and you don't know where to go, you can go to these communities. They make the jams, and they make workshops, and they run talks. And they are all connected between each other, so they do stuff with other provinces. Like I have traveled to many cities doing talks or mentoring jams because of this network. And we have these that are like universal, like they run on the whole country. This is a cooperative called Fundab that also gets grants and supports development in general. And Women in Games, that it's a worldwide thing, but we have our own section that make jams and tries to make a healthier and safer environment for women and every, we say dissidents, I don't know if this is a word in English, like LGBTQ, anyone who is not cis and male and etc. So that's basically it. I hope you like it. Thanks so much for listening and laughing and everything. I have a lot of stickers for you, so please come and take stickers, not just for me, but from many of the games we've seen. And yeah.